You're telling me there's a remake of the 80s classic Red Dawn starring Thor and Josh from Drake and Josh? What could go wrong? Oh. Red Dawn is the remake of the 1984 film of the same name, starring Chris Hemsworth, Josh Peck, Josh Hutcherson, Adrian Palicki, Isabel Lucas, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan. And this film tells the story of a group of high schoolers / young adults that have to fight for their home after North Korea invades the US. Back when this came out, I was insanely excited for it. I was 12 when this released, and seeing one of my childhood idols, Josh Peck, star in an action movie alongside Thor was awesome to see. I remember seeing this opening night and having a blast with it. I thought the action was good, it was a fun story, and it was cool seeing a bunch of normal people kick some ass. Now, 10 years later, I do not agree with my 12-year-old self. Red Dawn is a surprisingly boring film with pretty weak character work, action that's pretty meh, and pacing that's both too fast and too slow. Since I've never seen the original, I went into this just looking for the film as it is, not as a remake. What baffles me is that all the pieces for this to be a good film are there, they're just put together in the most boring and uninteresting way possible. I guess if I had to start with any positives, I really do like the cast. Nostalgia aside, I think the cast here does a good job with what they're given. The problem is what they're given isn't much to go off of. The amount of characters there are whose names I don't remember, whose personalities are non-existent, is quite a lot, and when some people die, it left no impact on me. I think a lot of this factors into the film being only 90 minutes long. There's very little time to get to know these characters, and the film just expects us to care for them since they're thrust into this impossible situation. What this film needed to do was give us more time before the North Koreans invaded so we can get a sense of who all these characters are and what they mean to each other. It always bugs me when action films like this have big casts and almost none of them have any kind of personality or anything to latch onto. Thankfully, there's films like Guardians of the Galaxy and The Suicide Squad that have shown us that this can be done successfully, but here it just ends up falling into another generic action film with poor writing. It's not just the main characters that are poorly written, there's practically nothing given to the North Koreans. We don't really learn why they invaded, what their ultimate goal is, how they invaded so quickly. Almost nothing is learned about the main general who's supposed to be the villain. It's kinda mind-boggling. This entire film is about these kids fighting an impossible fight, and we know practically nothing about the enemy they're fighting. There's also really no structure to how the plot of this is laid out. It starts well with the invasion and the kids realizing they're the only hope they have, then it just turns into a sequence of events with nothing really stringing them together. We don't have a sense of how much time has passed, how they're able to get in and out of the city so easily even though it's shown that they have it locked down, or even their ultimate plan. The only thing I can surmise about their plan is, as Chris Hemsworth said, it's to cause chaos. And while that's fine, there's still no structure to follow that allows that to make sense. Once the film ends, you feel like nothing was really gained aside from people starting to rise up. In terms of the action, I think it's serviceable. Most of it is just things blowing up and people shooting, but it never feels fun or intense. The guy that directed this, Dan Bradley, has had a lot of work in stunts, so I feel like there should have been more creative and fun scenes, and we should have seen the actors doing a lot of the stunts and fights themselves. Instead, a lot of it is hidden with shaky cam and quick cuts, and I truly hate when action films do this. You get no sense of where anything is or who's who, and you can't even tell what's going on half the time. Not every scene does this, but the ones that do really irritated me. While I love doing this series for really good films that were forgotten, I think examining bad films like this are good to study too. Red Dawn, at the end of the day, is just another generic action film with no identity of its own. Had this film been longer with a much better script, I think this could have been a really fun time. As it stands, I can understand why this was forgotten at the time, and I'm glad all these actors went on to do better things with their careers.